I don't think I'm feeling what I'm supposed to feel, what I thought I would feel. I mean, I love her. Of course I do. Of course I love my daughter. But I don't know if I love her.
Do you love all your clients' projects?
Of course.
No, you don't. But you take care of them and you keep them alive because that's your job, right?
Yeah.
So now you've got a new job, and it is a ruthless one. And I mean ruthless. You don't have time to waste second-guessing how you feel about it. You just have to do it the best that you can, and know that that's the best you can do.
So here's the thing about Princess Carolyn and Beatrice Horseman from Bojack Horseman. There's actually a great deal of similarities between their upbringing and subsequent struggles with motherhood. Ultimately, they turn out quite differently as mothers despite their alike journeys and stressors. And immediately I must thank @Yazanium for this video idea, and I appreciate their persistence in getting it made. It's a solid idea. I hope I can do it justice and show you that persistence does indeed pay off, especially on this channel. The first big resemblance between the two comes from their respective upbringings. Now, despite the likenesses and the overall lessons instilled into them, they were raised in very different households and time periods. While Beatrice was the daughter of a full, wealthy family, having everything provided for her, Princess Carolyn's single mother worked for a wealthy family, and Princess Carolyn had to work for every morsel she ever got. I do think that these fundamental differences in how they were raised is the reason they turned out so differently in the role of motherhood, but I will get more into that later. But despite these differences, they were both taught very harshly about traditional family dynamics and what a woman's role should be within them, in terms of old-fashioned values, like Joseph Sugarman's.
Now, stop making books your friends. Reading does nothing for young women but build their brains, taking valuable resources away from their breasts and hips.
Who is the #1 source of this in terms of Beatrice's upbringing? He pretty much has two modes, not present at all.
Oh, well, I'd love to stay, but I must be going. As a modern American man, I am woefully unprepared to manage a woman's emotions. I was never taught, and I will not learn. Take care, you two.
Or completely overbearing.
It's a mother's duty to keep her children alive, and you are continually failing. How could you not have known she has scarlet fever? Say something, damn it! What has become of you?
In Time Zero, we get a really close glimpse about what sort of values he tried to teach Beatrice throughout her childhood and into her adulthood, and the kind of man he was overall. At first, in the way he treats his wife, Honey. He actively ignores all of her needs, and pretty much only keeps her around to keep up that perfect 40s, 50s household perception that he clings to so desperately, even after she basically doesn't have a personality anymore. Despite the fact that he destroys that perception himself by cheating on her repeatedly and quite openly, if I do say so myself.
But who else but I will make sure the numbers add up and compliment my secretary on her tight sweaters?
We do appreciate the sacrifices you make, Joseph.
He can't deal with her emotions, or his own, frankly, so when their son is killed in World War II and Honey falls into a deep state of grief, he lobotomizes her so as to avoid facing those emotions. We never really see Joseph Sugarman process his son's death at all, and it leads me to believe that he tried not to think about it as vehemently as possible. And Beatrice still reveres him as a man who knew what marriage meant, even as she witnessed him take away Honey's entire sense of self and then berate her for, quote, not doing her duty later on, when she literally doesn't have a prefrontal cortex. And Beatrice is horrified upon seeing her so taken apart, but we do see immediately after that, she goes into the front yard to play when Bojack is wrecking the Sugarman house after the reveal of the lobotomy. She was taught by her mother and father that this was completely normal behavior and that love has no actual place in a household. But happiness will come regardless. You will be rewarded for following these traditional values and nothing else. Later on, we see that Beatrice has a more nuanced view of her father and his values after attending university. He still forces her to debut in a debutante ball, a real and in fact disgusting tradition as this show demonstrates, with her actually jumping over hurdles to show herself off. It's so creepy. But despite this, she feels that the idea of presenting herself for men and taking the choice away from young women is an outdated tradition that she would like to do away with. For Princess Carolyn, she was exposed to the high life and those sort of long-established familial values through her mother's bosses, and after fraternizing with the son of the family, she finds herself pregnant with his child, giving her a further glimpse into that world. Her mother is even so excited for her and declares this their big break.
My life's over.
No, Oh, are you kidding? This is a good thing. That boy's stuck with you now.
Stuck with me?
That little white roulette ball just landed on your number. You know the Wallaces are good people. They're gonna do right by you.
Princess Carolyn, and by extension her family, would be admitted into the luxurious life that she's lived next to all of her life. She also says that he's stuck with her, trying to tell Princess Carolyn that this is the best she could hope for out of her life and her family due to their, quote, losing lottery numbers. But when being lectured by the head of the household what she would be doing with her future, you can see her grow dissatisfied. The expressions on her face show that she has no taste for destroying other housewives and social combat or that sort of thing, which is what Cooper, the head of the household, professes his wife will teach her to do. Plus, the affection with the son has completely gone away as the family views it as a mistake as well. I mean, the dad even calls his son an idiot, so he's probably not feeling great about this decision, and it paints an entirely different picture from the one her mother presented to her when she initially got pregnant. But when she has a miscarriage, her mother scolds her for blowing it. And while she eventually does give her the acceptance letter from UCLA, I do think this stuck with Princess Carolyn for a long time, and is part of the reason she could not accept that she was unable to have children, even after so many miscarriages, and is part of the reason why she's so upset with Ralph for suggesting it. It would mean that she is, quote, blowing it, at least in the back of her mind, due to her mother's harsh words when she was a teenager. But as a result, they do both rebel against their own households and the ideals that were trying to be forced upon them, whether that be with Beatrice getting together with Butterscotch, or Princess Carolyn leaving her mother for college and refusing to stay behind, quote, until her brother comes home. Which, by the way, was absolutely a tactic to get Princess Carolyn to stay home indefinitely. There would be no end to the constant bombast of demands from Cutie Cutie Cupcake. That's PC's mom's name, by the way. However, they never really leave what they were taught completely behind. Princess Carolyn still compulsively takes care of other people because of her dysfunctional family, and has a certain determination to be a mother that we can't quite see the source of until they reveal in Amelia Earhart's story. While Beatrice still sees her childhood as ideal, with her mother and father being a happy couple despite all of it. Plus, she still forces herself to conform to fit old-fashioned standards of beauty at the very least, asking the maid to fetch her a pretty pill when she can't fit well into her corset before the debutante ball. And then later in life, with the prospect of motherhood, they both take it completely differently. Princess Carolyn spends so much time wanting to be a mother and repeatedly tries to become one despite many roadblocks, through 5 miscarriages, several prospective fathers, and many attempts to adopt a baby with some incredibly uncaring adoption agents. She is able to hold her own and remain resilient through it all. And I think this is largely because of her upbringing. As I mentioned earlier, she had to work for everything she got, especially since her mom never really worked to support her in the first place, and that gave her the patience and tenacity required to be a mother. Plus, her having to try so hard to get to have a baby in the first place just affirms her decision that she does indeed want it. And we don't see much second guessing on her part in terms of actually going for the baby. This is something she knows for a fact she wants to do. And you need patience and tenacity, by the way, because as she experiences, even after the long process to be able to get the child, motherhood itself is not all sunshine and rainbows. It is a brutal, demanding job that can be rewarding if you put in the work and truly do the best you can, as Vanessa Gecko explains to her. The new client overall demonstrates that even after waiting for it for so long, PC was not necessarily ready to be in the throes of motherhood so quickly. But even if she doesn't know if she loves her baby, as she states in that episode, she's willing to put in the work and perform the job to the best of her ability. And eventually she's rewarded, as the true affection and love does sink in, as does a name. Those are pretty important to give to babies. It feels like Princess Carolyn really clicks with Ruthie after accepting the fact that this is a new job and she'll have to work at it. Motherhood is not, as she was taught, a solution to all her problems, as evidenced by when she says she thinks her life will be less stressful once she gets a baby.
But I think once I get a baby, my life will be less hectic, you know?
Oh, sure. That must be why new mothers always seem so chilled out and well-rested.
Honestly, one of the most insane statements a character I love so greatly has ever made. Like her job, which she also loves deeply and needs to feel fulfilled as a person, she needs to put serious work into motherhood, and it won't be a constantly upward swing. She'll make mistakes, have bad days, but as long as she works at it, it will benefit her in the long run and provide that fulfillment that she's been looking for. Beatrice, on the other hand, is given the opportunity and doesn't truly want it, but cannot bring herself to get rid of the baby, so she instead settles for Bojack and his father into the role that her mother modeled for her, and in time, into the ideals that her father was trying so hard to ingrain into her as a young woman. However, just like everything else in her early life, this was given to her without any effort on her part, and she doesn't really expect to put in much effort after the baby is born. When Bojack is crying, she doesn't feel the need to hold him or properly comfort him, or honestly even check if he needs food, instead resolving to just drown herself in drugs to be able to sleep. And she encourages Butterscotch to take a corner office at Sugarman West and make more money so that she'd be able to afford help that would take the baby off of her hands, basically. And eventually that's exactly what happened. She was able to get housemaids to be able to do all of the unpleasant work that's required in her young child, leaving her to be able to rest and pamper herself as she was used to from her previous lifestyle. But it doesn't bring her any sort of reward or happiness. In fact, her husband begins to cheat on her blatantly, and she spends her days oftentimes crying to herself, or loudly, or drinking herself to sleep. So she instead resolves to take her cruelty out on her child, since she never developed any sort of actual attachment to him, outsourcing all of the hard work to other people and giving up on the endeavor very early in the process. She feels no need to be kind to him. He did, after all, force her into this lifestyle that she thought would reward her, and is the source, in her eyes, of her unhappiness.
You ruined me, Bojack. I know.
Even though it's largely due for a lack of effort to be a mother on her part, yes, Butterscotch is also at fault for a lot of this household unhappiness. And I think this does speak a lot to the difference of Princess Carolyn choosing to be a mother and Beatrice ending up stuck as a mother, and how that translates into the different treatment of the children. I mean, Princess Carolyn over and over again was asked, do you truly have what it takes to be a mother? Do you have what it takes to put in the effort required? While Beatrice got it on the first try and said, what the heck, I'm pretty sure I can do this. And eventually couldn't do it and turned to shortcuts to deal with the child instead. Overall, even despite the similar nature they were raised in with oppressive and abusive parents, they developed into completely different mothers. Opposites. In fact, the ideals they were raised on were the same, but the environments were completely unalike, and it shows the change that that can have in a person and how they go on to treat others. And while they both struggled with the job of being a mother at first, one of them resolved to work harder at it, eventually blossoming into a healthy, responsible mother with an equally active work life, as well as a healthy balance between the two. While the other gave up, turning to anything that could immediately relieve her stress or distract her, rather than actually working at her familial relationships, since she is used to not having to work for anything. That is the fundamental difference between these two characters, and why they developed into such starkly different people. But they are two sides of the same coin, and once again, I would like to thank @Yazanium for this video. They really had a wonderful idea, and I hope I elaborated enough. If there's anything else that you guys think I missed, please let me know in the comments below. I love discussing Bojack with all of you. It's very fun, and like I said, you've got some great ideas too. And let me know what you would like to see next on this channel, but if you want to support us further, you can go to patreon.com/PosiTVty. That's PosiTVty. There you can get all these videos way before they get out on YouTube. Get the unedited essays, so you can hear me mess up 1,000 times and hear special little trivia about my scripts and the quality of them. You can exclusively tell me exactly what you'd like me to make a video on, and I will make it as soon as possible. So it's a great way to get more content for yourself and some special privileges, but also support us in the first place. Plus, if you want to just join for free to get some sneak previews of the videos before they go up on YouTube, you can do that as well, because you can become a free member. As well, all the support on YouTube means a lot to us. Thank you for subscribing, liking, commenting. All the engagement is wonderful. We all know how YouTube's algorithm works at this point. Anyway, join me for the next video, and I'll see you there. Bye-bye.